Well, huge shock. Okay, big, giant shock. If you asked me this morning, hey, would you believe it if I told you that Lincoln was almost denied re-election because those that sought to unseat him tried to do a mail-in ballot scheme? I'd say, yeah, no, of course I believe that. Because the playbook doesn't get new, it doesn't get updated. We know what the playbook is. So, of course, Democrats are trying to do the mail-in ballot scheme to unseat President Trump. And way back in 1864, bear in mind, you know what happened thereafter. There were a couple people who conspired to assassinate the president, the VP, and I believe the Speaker of the House. There was a third person. I forget exactly who. Don't quote me on that. But there were a third person. Lincoln, Andrew Jackson, and one other. And the plot was foiled, but those people were hanged. So if that is the story they want to play out, then the people who are responsible will be hanged. But anyways, let's just see this. So mail-in ballots were part of a plot to deny Lincoln re-election in 1864. This is from the Washington Post only a few hours ago from Dustin Waters. This says, traveling to Baltimore in the fall of 1864, Orville Wood had no way of knowing he would soon uncover the most elaborate election conspiracy of America's brief history. Interesting. Wood was a merchant from Clinton County, in the most northeastern corner of New York. As a supporter of President Abraham Lincoln, he was tasked with visiting troops from his hometown to, quote, look after the local ticket, unquote. New York legislators had only established the state's mail-in voting system in April with the intent of ensuring the suffrage of white troops battling the Confederate Army. Wow, interesting. New York State had always been corrupt even way back when. Well, we knew that since its inception. And if you watch any of the fiction on New York, that displays its corruption as well. So it's through and through. New York is obviously always corrupt. We'll see if that changes. It says, the results of the 1864 elections would heavily affect the outcome of the war. Well, no kidding. Yeah, if someone who is a Confederate sympathizer would win, they may call off the Civil War and say, okay, enough, let's have a treaty, let's allow slavery. I mean, literally, that could have happened. Lincoln and his supporters in the National Union Party sought to continue the war in order to defeat the Confederacy outright, without a treaty. Meanwhile, anti-war Democrats, also referred to as the Copperheads, interesting, looked for an immediate compromise with the Confederate leaders and at the end of the abolition movement. Okay? So, what do you hear just from that? That Democrats have always, or at least consistently, seemingly been on the wrong side of history, that they fought to end the war early so that slavery could continue, that they used a mail-in ballot scheme. We're not quite there yet, but that's the headline, so you can figure that's where we're going. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel, like the video. Troops from New York were allowed to authorize individuals back home to cast a vote on their behalf. So if you're in the military, you were fighting the Confederacy, you could say, hey, homies, vote for me. Along with their mail-in ballots, troops would assign power of attorney on slips that would require 4 signatures: the voter, the authorized recipient, a witness to the signed affidavit as a fellow officer. These documents would be sealed in an envelope and shipped back home to be counted in the final count. So, okay, even way back when, you needed 4 signatures to do a mail-in, and it had to be authenticated. Right now, they're just mailing out ballots saying, write it in, write whatever you want, pop it back in the mail, we'll come pick it up, it'll all count. It'll count the same as the guy who drives 45 minutes to his home precinct to make sure he gets a vote in. Unreal. This is the process that Orville Wood intended to uphold, and he would testify in court that he would testify in court later. He quickly found what a challenge that would be. Wood arrived at Fort McHenry in Baltimore to visit the 91st New York Regiment. There, an Army captain suggested that there had been, quote, some checker playing, unquote, when it came to the gathering of soldiers' mail-in ballots. These suspicious frauds were echoed when Wood visited wounded men in the Newton University Hospital, where the rumors of wrongdoing led Wood to the office of Moses Ferry in Baltimore. So he's going around talking to different individuals, and they're like, yeah, we kind of made sure we tuned up the votes there a little bit. As we were collecting the ballots, we made sure we checked the votes, so to speak. So there's a little bit of a checker playing going on. And he's like, oh, there's what? And then he goes to the wounded dudes, and they're all like, yeah, I saw him throw my ballot away. And he's like, oh my God, what? So he's going around hearing that the ballots are not getting in, the votes are not going to be counted. Says, Ferry had been selected by the New York Governor Horatio Seymour, interesting, to help oversee the voting process for New York's enlisted men. Seymour had vetoed the initial bill to establish mail-in voting and would go on to run against Ulysses S. Grant in the 1868 presidential election. Anyone that doesn't like Grant, anyone that wouldn't look Grant in the eye and be like, better man than I, he's a liar. So, of course, he decided to run against him. Wood masked his suspicions as he entered Ferry's office, portraying himself as a strong supporter of Lincoln's opponent, George McClellan. And this was enough that he believed it, because, of course, the arrogance and the audacity of these dumb motherfuckers that are always conspiring. As soon as someone walks in and says, I want to conspire with you, buddy, they just go, sure you do. Of course everyone does, right? Oh, I'm so right. Ferry told Wood that the votes from New York's 91st would already have been tallied, 400 for McClellan and only 11 for Lincoln. Wood returned to the office later, following his instructions, began forging signatures for the 16th. Meanwhile, a clerk sat across the room, signing ballots from the roster of names that Wood had brought with him from home. Wood had asked to personally deliver these fraudulent ballots, but Ferry said that they would have to receive final approval from his colleagues in Washington, Edward Donahue Jr. So I could go on. This goes into detail about a plot that this guy kind of falls into and uncovers and then rides along with all of these fake ballot results. And you can just tell here by the end, it says the commission that oversaw these guys' trials, because they were caught in the end, recommended life in prison for the two men that sought to corrupt the election by mail. The president, who would soon be slain, approved. So these people, this is just play this ball out now. Run out the ground ball. If people try to defraud the president of a re-election by a mail-in ballot scheme, and they are caught, not caught trying to set it up, but caught in the execution of it, they can be sentenced to prison for life. And anyone who has committed treason can be sentenced to death. And you can see in another video that I've made in the past, people have been hanged for trying to kill the president, or in other cases, just treason. So understand, someone who is seeking to set up and establish a mail-in ballot scheme, not just to say, hey, I'm petitioning to have mail-in ballots because I believe it's good. Hard to prove that it's a conspiracy, but for those that they can prove, it is beyond a doubt a conspiracy that they're trying to remove the president by using a mail-in ballot scheme. They will be sentenced. This was back in 1864. The Democrats don't seem to learn. History does repeat itself. So, you tell me, do you think that someone as smart as Abraham Lincoln or someone as cunning as Donald Trump would allow a mail-in ballot scheme to go unnoticed? No. And he's calling it out every single step of the way. That way, by the time we get there and they're caught, we say, aha, here they are being caught. And we all go, we all kind of suspected it because you've been saying it for 4 months. And then they'll be sentenced. And a whole lot more to come. So again, like this video, let me know what you think in the comments. Share this video with someone, or just go to like a JCPenney catalog online, go to the comment section on a Pier 1 Imports section of some sort, anywhere on any page really, and just drop the link to the video. And then make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Do all of those things and everything else that you can to keep America afloat.